Today's the day that woke may have just died in the gaming industry, at least for one of the biggest players, EA Games, which just recently sold the entire company to Saudi Arabian investment firms. And this is the thing that we're seeing blowing up online where people are saying, what is going on here? EA Sports and its whole conglomerate of video games is gone now, at least in its current modern day essence. And I think this is the thing that has players excited for the future of EA Games, and this has a lot of people angry and wild with frustration because they're seeing the future that they built up so far with modern day progressive ideas at the core and center of the production of video games. They're seeing that evaporate in front of their eyes because Saudi Arabia is known for not being very friendly to these concepts and ideas that are so active and present in the Western gaming industry. And I think this is the thing that we see people looking at the future of the gaming industry as a place that is going to be entirely out of their scope of control and influence, because Saudi Arabia is one of those places where activism, consultancy firms, and of course, investment banks really have no hold over. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing happening online as people discuss what is going on with EA and a sale to investment firms in Saudi Arabia. If you don't know the details, video game maker EA started advanced talks in actually going private over a week ago. And these were just rumors and kind of discussions and talks that may have fallen through, but the deal is done now. For an over $50 billion valuation, EA Electronic Arts is now a privately run company. And I think for a lot of people, this is a good sign for the future of gaming in and of itself, because as a private company, you loosen the grips of outside influences on the content that you're producing. Now the focus has to be making money. And I think that's exactly what has a whole lot of people that are at the forefront and leading the Western gaming industry right now understanding about the situation, because everything they've been doing when it comes to content that is more focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, more focused on DEI, aggressivism, racial transphobia, feminization, diversity, inclusion, all these elements that were at the forefront in the gaming industry are going to take a back burner to the actual thing that corporations are usually more focused on, which is making money. And I think that's the thing that gamers are happy about, because if you want to make money in the gaming industry, you have to follow the lead of the east side of gaming with China, Korea, and Japan, where you make things for a gaming audience. And that has long not been the philosophy of Western gaming. You can just look at the titles that have been coming out, where it's more about bringing in these diverse elements, these cultural elements that usually have nothing to do with the fun and engagement of the gamers themselves. It's about bringing in the ideas and political thoughts of the people that are driving for political change in real world society. And that's why we had so much games more centered on the idealisms of these modern day California politics, where it's focused on inclusivity, diversity, bringing all these elements, LGBTQ elements, to the forefront, because they want these represented as the things that gamers are actually consuming, where they're more willing to actually accept these ideas because they engage them within video games. And that's why we saw games like Concord, like Flintlock, like Kill the Justice League, like Dustborn, like Star Wars Outlaws, some of them from EA that are more focused on being about the brand consciousness for a political movement rather than an actual game that's fun and engaging. And that's why we had so much titles that came out to be absolutely failures within different game developers. And this is what we saw with a lot of titles that were coming out these past few years, where they lost themselves in being political activist messaging tools rather than being representative of the thing that gamers want from their video game, which is something fun and engaging. And this is what we saw with Star Wars Outlaws and Dragon Age Veilguard from EA Games, where they produced content that were absolute failures that lost them hundreds of millions of dollars because they're more focused on sending out a message rather than producing something gamers would actually enjoy. And this is the old age of gaming, where it's run by consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc. that have these messages as the focus of the content they want to put out. It doesn't matter the profitability of the game itself. The game is just a tool, and that is the thing that is being left out of this deal when it comes to Saudi Arabia purchasing EA. This is not going to be at the forefront because these type of games, these type of positions don't make money. If you ignore the failures like Forspoken, Unknown 9, and Dustborn that were absolutely colossal failures in the line of Concord and many other titles like Dragon Age Veilguard, you can look at the successes like Spider-Man 2, like Alan Wake 2, where these games make half as much as their predecessors. And that is just not good business sense, where you're making half as much as your predecessor. And I think this is the thing that we're going to see with this Saudi Arabian deal, where It's going to be more focused on bringing in the profits. And this is what we saw in previous deals when it's around Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia is like, hey, we're kicking out all the elements that don't make us money. And this is what we saw with the Saudi Arabian purchase of SNK and Fatal Fury. And I think this is the thing that we saw pushed to the side. All the politics, all the diversity, equity, inclusion, those were non-existent in the new game that came out. It was more focused on bringing the things that gamers love, and it was a success for that. And I think this is the consistent thing that we see from Saudi Arabia as they made their SNK deal. They own 96% of the company, and they're focused on the elements of the gaming community that is more in line with this ideology. Of course, they put random things, Cristiano Ronaldo becoming a playable character, and you know he's playing for the Saudi Arabian team. So we get these type of elements that are kind of nonsensical and not in line with what we want in gaming. But I think this is a better option to what we've been seeing from the Western gaming industry, where they're just completely removing the characters we want to see with entities and ideas that have nothing to do with the content that we're trying to see from the game that we're playing and buying. That Dragon Age Veilguard is a perfect example of that. We're talking about LA non-binary LGBTQ politics in a fantasy world. And I think this is the thing that is frustrating the gamers. And I think that's the thing that gamers are applauding right now, where, hey, this company is being bought up by these organizations that really do not care for these personal politics. And that 55 billion price tag is a symbolic gesture that symbolizes the end of that trend of focusing on things outside of making money. Money is now the focus, and the people that don't bring in the money will be fired. And I think this is what we see from the groups that have purchased EA for this price tag. PIF is the Saudi Arabia back investment group. Silver Lake is another group, an American group that is affiliated with the purchase itself. And of course, Affinity Partners is under the guidance of Jared Kushner. Whether you like him or not, this is a positive sign, because these are all elements that do not care for the ideals that have been ruining the gaming industry. They're there for profit. And profit may bring in its bad sides. We might see microtransactions, but this is the gamble gamers are willing to gamble on, because we are tired of seeing the type of games that just kind of ruin the entire legacies of franchises that we once loved. I think this investment group is probably the best choice for gamers. And I think this is what we're going to see, at least for the titles that we absolutely love from EA, because it has a lot of titles we absolutely love. We have the Dead Space franchise, Mass Effect, of course, we have BioWare and all the Dragon Age games, Titanfall, we have Battlefront, so much titles, Command and Conquer, so much forgotten titles that are just not really getting that love anymore. And I think this is a chance to see those titles rebought back by an organization that is looking to make a profit, that is looking to make a game for the gamers, hopefully. And I think that's the thing you're going to have to do if you want to make a sellable game. It has to be something gamers want to play and love and are going to invest time in. It can't be about your personal idealism. And I think this is the thing that we're going to see play out. I know some people that are playing the sports games. I'm not really playing any EA sports games at all, so I'm not really concerned about that. Probably going to have a lot of microtransactions, a lot of loot boxes, a lot of random stuff that seems that that's the way of the sports game recently. So it might bring that over to these other games, but hopefully that's not the case. I think we may get more of an investment in producing better content, at least the better content than we've been getting for the past few years. But of course, there's going to be people angry about this. And then the angry people are obviously the people that are benefiting from the previous system. I'm talking about the Sweet Baby Inc., the consultancy firms that were making bank from these organizations for consulting them to their own ruin, which has led to this purchase. And I think that's the thing that we've been seeing with a lot of these purchases that are happening right now. We saw it with Ubisoft, where they had to sell their most valuable IPs to China because their biggest failure came out, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it was all due to the influence and the interaction with companies like Sweet Baby and people within their own development team that were pushing these ideals that kind of ruined the hype for their most titular games and put them in a position of massive failure after massive failure. And I think this is the situation that we're seeing now within the gaming industry, where we're seeing a complete loss of understanding of what the gamers actually want to see and what they are willing to play. And that's why this purchase is happening. And of course, the people mad about it are going to be the people that hold these ideals. And most of those people are Sims players who are deeply enraged by the situation because they know Saudi Arabia is very diametrically opposed to a lot of the things they believe in. This is The Sims, where you have all these LGBTQ diversity, equity arrangements at the focus. And I think their frustration and anger is misplaced because Saudi Arabia, like I said, is going to be more focused on making money. They're not going to make a Sims game where everyone's covered up. At least outside of Saudi Arabia, the game is probably going to be essentially the same because that's making the most money for them. And I think this is the thing people that are against this purchase don't understand. These people want to make money. They're not pushing an ideology here. They're trying to make a profit from their purchase. And I think a lot of people that are saying, hey, they're going to ban LGBTQ stuff and they're going to do all this other stuff to Sims, maybe in Saudi Arabia, but outside of Saudi Arabia, they're not going to really care too much because that is the profit maker in America. They're probably not going to put that in Dragon Age or Mass Effect because that's not a profit maker. And that's the simple thing that gamers want to see from video games. People actually making something to the audience that is purchasing those games. And I think Saudi Arabia is better equipped to do that. At least that's my idea of the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think Saudi Arabia is going to make the same mistakes that EA has made with producing a lot of content outside of sports. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to bring back some of the games that we loved in their original fashion. And I think we already have proof of that with the SNK franchise being under better hands and under their guidance. But that is just my thoughts of the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.